All right, we're back. Let's talk about example 3. Example 3 says using complements and supplements to solve problems. So this problem says an angle is 10 more than 3 times the measure of its complement. Find the measure of its complement. Oh man, okay, so we're trying to find the measure of its complement. That's what the problem's asking us. They give us this first line. This first line is an equation, okay? So they're giving us an equation. So the first thing, an angle. Do we know what that angle is? No, that's an angle. We're just going to call that measure of angle A. That is an angle. Okay? Then it says, so measure of angle A. So we'll say let measure of angle A equal an angle. Okay, and then it talks about the measure of its complement. So what would the complement of an angle be? Well, the complement of this angle, so a complement of an angle is the complement of this angle, which would just equal 90 minus, right? Complement is 90, measure of angle A. So that's basically like defining our terms. We didn't know what an angle is and the measure of its complement. So it's a complement of that angle. So let's go ahead and write the equation. So it says an angle is, okay, so an angle is, here's our angle, is means equals. Okay, then we have 10 more than. Oh, those are keywords, more than. More means plus, right? Than means flip. So 10 is in front of these two words, so that means 10 is going to flip to the back. And then we have 3 times the measure of its complement. Okay, so 3 times, that means it's going to be 3 multiplication, the measure of its complement, which is right here. This is the measure of its complement. So it's 3 times the measure of its complement. So we're going to write that here. 3 times the measure of its complement, which is 90 minus the measure of angle A. Oh man, that's not enough room. So I'm going to rewrite this over here so it's bigger. I didn't know. Measure of angle A equals 3 times the measure of the complement. Oh, a little lowercase a. Plus 10. Okay, so this says an angle, that's this, is means equals. 10 more than, so more than is the plus, than means the 10 flips to the back, and all of this information flips to the front. 3 times the measure of its complement, right there. Perfect. So now we just need to use our algebra and solve this problem. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to use the distributive property and distribute this 3 to both things. So we have measure of angle A equals 3 times 90, which is the same thing as 3 times 9, which is 27, and then you add a 0, so it's going to be 270. And then, so we distributed the 3 there, we got to distribute the 3 here. So that's going to give us a negative 3 measure of angle A plus 10. All right, then we can just simplify these numbers. So we get measure of angle A equals 270 plus 10 would be, what would it be? 280 minus 3 measure of angle A. So I know it's kind of weird to look at this measure of angle A and things like that, but what I want you to recognize is this right here. We're going to keep working, but I want you to see this. This is the same thing as if I just made this measure of angle A an X. And X equals 280 minus 3X. These two things are the same. So measure of angle A, that's just our variable, that's just X, equals 280 minus 3 times the measure of angle A, and that's just X. Okay, so you know how to solve this. Sometimes this notation you'll get really used to it as this year goes on. But I know it's a little different to look at, you know, but you would just solve it the same way, right? We have variables on both sides. This one is already isolated, so I'm going to move this one over. You're going to add 3x to both sides. and you get 4x equals 280. You're going to do the same thing here, right? This is our variable, this is our variable, this is our unknown. We are going to, this one's already isolated, so we're going to move this one over, which means we're going to use the addition property of equality and move it over here. Okay, so those cancel. We're left with measure of angle A plus 3 measures of angle A, and that's just basically 1 plus 3, which is 4. 4 measures of angle A equals 280, because those canceled out. And then we just, you know, this is 4 times, so we're going to do the inverse operation, which would be division property of equality to both things. And 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1 times the measure of angle A is just the measure of angle A, equals 280 divided by 4. So I'm going to go over here, 280 divided by 4. 4 doesn't go into 2. 4 goes into 28 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. No remainder. Drop that 0 down. 4 doesn't go into 0, so it goes in 0 times. So there you go. 0 times 4 is 0. No remainder. Nothing to drop down. You're done. So that means the measure of angle A is 70 degrees. Okay? But what we need to do is whenever you're doing a problem like this, you have to go back up to the original question. It says an angle is 10 more than 3 times the measure of its complement. All right, cool. That's what gave us this formula here. Find the measure of its complement. So these are a little tricky. You have to go back and you have to read, well, what are they asking? It says find the measure of the complement. Is that what we found? Did we find the measure of the complement here with measure of angle A? No, we found the measure of an angle. So now we need to go ahead and find what the complement of that angle is. So the complement of an angle, or the measure of angle A, right, is equal to 90 minus the measure of angle A, right? And what is the measure of angle A? We're going to substitute that 70 in. So we get the complement of the measure of angle A is equal to 90 minus 70, which means the complement of the measure of angle A is equal to 20 degrees. So that is our answer. That is what they asked us to solve, to find the complement. All right. Boom. Okay, that's how we solve that one. Okay, let's go on to check it out, example 3. Now this one, I think we're just going to start off and just solve it together. Okay. So it says an angle's measure is 12 more than half the measure of its supplement. Find the measure of the angle. Okay, so first we have to find our terms, right? We have an angle and then we have the measure of its supplement. So let's let the measure of angle A equal an angle, right? And let's have the supplement of an angle equal 180 minus the measure of an angle, which is measure of angle A. Okay, so now that we have our terms defined, let's go ahead and convert these words into an algebraic equation. Okay, this says an angle's measure is. Well, we know is means equals. An angle's measure, we don't know that, but we just defined it as measure of angle A. So that's going to be the measure of angle A is equals 12 more than, okay, so there's more than, that's plus and flip. So I'm going to write this plus over here so I have more room this time. So plus, and this 12 flips to the back. Okay, so 12 more than half the measure of its supplement. Okay, so that's half the measure of its supplement, so half of this right here. So it's going to be 1/2, and it's times this whole thing, 180 minus the measure of angle A. Okay, so that's the equation, and then what do we need to do? We need to find the measure of the angle. So that's what they're asking for. Find the measure of the angle. So I'm going to highlight that so I remember to look back and make sure I answer the question correctly. So here we go. Here's our algebra right here. So the first thing we have to do is distribute this half to both things, right here and right here. So I'm just going to rewrite this. Measure of angle A equals 1/2 of 180. We know that half of 180 is 90. And then 1/2 times a negative measure of angle A is going to be negative 1/2 measure of angle A plus 12. All right, perfect. So now we are just going to simplify, right? These two numbers, 90 and 12, we can combine like terms there. So measure of angle A equals 90 plus 12 would be 102 minus 1/2 measure of angle A. All right, now we have the measure of angle A's on both sides. We need to get them on the same side. So we're going to do, this is already over here by itself, so I'm just going to move this one over. To do that, I'm going to use the addition property of equality and just go add 1/2 measure of angle A to both sides. All right, those cancel. Now I have 1 measure of angle A plus 1/2 measure of angle A. I know that 1 is the same thing as 2 over 2, right? 2 divided by 2 is the same thing as 1. So now I have my common denominator, and I'm just going to add the numbers on top. So 2 plus 1 is 3. And then we keep that denominator of 2. So 3 over 2, measure of angle A is equal to 102. All right. So I want to get measure of angle A by itself, and there's a fraction multiplied by it. So I'm going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, right? So 2/3 to both sides. Okay, the 2's cancel, the 3's cancel, it's all 1 times, so now I have measure of angle A by itself, which is what I want. Awesome. Now I need to, I'm multiplying fractions. I'm going to change that 102 into 102 over 1, which is the same thing. And whenever you're multiplying fractions, you want to look to cross cancel. So is there anything common between 102 and 3? Well, I'm not sure, but do you remember the divisibility rule to figure out if something's divisible by 3? You add up the digits, 1 plus 0 plus 2. So 1 plus 0 is 1, 1 plus 2 is 3. Is 3 divisible by 3? Yes, it is. That means this whole number is divisible by 3. So I'm going to see how many times 3 goes into 102. So I'm going to go over here and go 102 divided by 3. 3 doesn't go into 1. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. And then I'm going to drop down that 2. Does 3 go into 12? Yes, it does. How many times? 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Boom. There we have it. So that means 3 goes into itself 1 time, and 3 goes into 102 34 times. Can't cross cancel here with 1 and 2 because of that 1. All right, that's already simplified. Then we just multiply across. So 34 times 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 3 is 6. We end up with 68 degrees. And then just 1 times 1 is 1. So 68 over 1 is the same thing. So there we have it. The measure of angle A is 68 degrees. Now, did we answer the question? It says find the measure of the angle. Well, that's an angle, measure of angle A. So boom, we have it. So there we go. All right, I'll see you in a little bit for example 4.